Representatives of the Mayor's Office and the Malden Redevelopment Authority are present to provide an update on the status of the Field of Dream project at the National Grid site.
Yes, would the representatives from the Mayor's Office and the Malden Redevelopment Authority please come forward? State your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Burke. I'm the Executive Director of the Malden Redevelopment Authority, and my residence is at 15 Autumn Lane in Reading.
Councilman Matheson, I know this was your motion last week that we all agreed to, so if you'd like to start off.
Thank you, Madam President. I sponsored this update just as I sponsored the last because I think periodically citizens become justifiably curious about the status of these major operations that the city is engaged in. Obviously, with respect to the trash collection, we're all involved on a weekly basis, 20-year contract. In this particular proposal, I believe we're going back maybe 5 years now. Ms. Burke, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Longer, perhaps, I'm hearing from the council to my right. And I know we've spent quite considerable funds on soft costs. It concerns a very valuable parcel in the center of our city. And certainly it concerns some going concerns of locally owned businesses that we were expecting to take by eminent domain to make room for this athletic stadium that I believe was a ballpark, but then I heard some rumblings last year from the mayor that maybe it could be a soccer stadium and maybe it's still viable, but every year that I personally seek an update from yourself or the mayor, it seems to be that there's another tenuous deadline in our future that, well, by this summer will be our drop dead date and then we'll know. But now that some time has really passed, I think it's time to get some information before the folks, and that's why, I invited you and or a representative from the mayor's office to come give us an update. And I appreciate you being here, so if you could, enlighten us.
Sure. I want to thank all of you for, inviting me to give this presentation. And you're right, there has been some lapse in time since you last received an update. It was probably over a year and a half ago. And from where I sit, I would probably say that the discussion has been, equally, kind of painful to go through, especially most recently. But in preparing for tonight, how I tried to separate out my thoughts here, and feel free to ask any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer them, is I tried to look at it as kind of a three-pronged approach. You have in one, let's say bucket, you have the city/Malden Redevelopment Authority, you have National Grid in another, and then you have the proposed developer, which is more commonly known here as Alex Block. So how I divided it, I'd like to just kind of, because sequentially I think I can, it's not a long-winded presentation, but just to kind of get to your points, Councilor. You are right, Councilor Spatafora. We first met Mr. Block in 2008, and that was at a time when he had lived in Boston and then subsequently in Somerville in which to site a ballpark. It wasn't, though, however, until 2012 that we finally signed a letter of intent that the Redevelopment Authority was party to, as well as National Grid and Baseball Field of Dreams. I'm here to tell you tonight that that letter of intent has expired, and that from National Grid's point of view, if there was to be or is to be a Baseball Field of Dreams deal, that document would have to be renegotiated. If for nothing else, National Grid folks has told us it's purely from an economic standpoint. There's stale numbers in their opinion that are a couple of years old. So that's one point in terms of the National Grid. When we first met Alex Block, and you got to pardon me, I've tried to come up as much as I can to speed with the sports semantics and whatnot, and I'm learning every day and doing my best at trying to do that. But when we first met him, he was pursuing at the time what was called an independent, non-affiliated league. He has subsequently, and probably within the last year, has changed course and is now pursuing an affiliated full-season team. He made that decision. He advises us to go for the affiliated version versus the independent league version because of several challenges in obtaining long-term financing from various lenders. Basically, he told us maybe about 7 months ago that lenders that he had met with would not finance a independent deal. So he switched courses and started looking at the affiliate. With respect to financing, he's advised both my office and the mayor's office that he has strong interest from 2 local banks that have indicated their strong interest in wanting to finance an affiliated team. And those 2 banks are Eastern Bank and East Boston Savings Bank. He has also said that in looking to do an affiliated team, that there's several territorial issues associated with that, and there's a series of negotiations that are required in confidentiality with folks in minor league baseball. He's in the midst of those discussions based on what he has advised me and the mayor most recently as maybe a week and a half ago. Additionally, in recent months, this became public a couple of weeks ago at the Mayor's State of the City address, a group of people from a soccer team raised their hand and said hello, and basically Mr. Bach has been meeting with some members of a soccer team that too is in divisions, looking to cite a Division 4. Division 2 is the best, but looking to cite a Division 4 soccer league in Malden. There are supposedly several local Malden people that play for this team, and they've been in discussions with Bach about potentially extending the play on a baseball park to include soccer on a regular basis. It would require, according to Mr. Bach, a reconfiguration of the design of the field, not unachievable, but something that would require a redesign of the field. And his example that he cites with his dual play of soccer in an overlay sort of way takes place at Yankee Stadium currently, from what he has told us. On National Grid, I have had a couple of recent conversations with National Grid right up to the chief assistant to the president of the company, Marcy Reed. One occurred as late as today in preparation for tonight's meeting, to be honest with you. And as you know, like I said, the city, the MRA, and National Grid issued a joint RFP for the redevelopment of the site in October 2011. That's when the document first hit the street. The letter of intent with the parties was signed and executed on December 17, 2012. The letter of intent, according to National Grid, is, in their words, non-operative. It's having expired over a year ago. National Grid has stated that the whole letter of intent would need to be renegotiated. In fact, National Grid has also advised that they had been in a wait-and-see type pattern, and that they never moved some of its operations out of Commercial Street, as we were originally told, down to Medford Street. And in fact, they're moving some of the Medford Street people up to the Commercial Street facility right now because of an overcrowding situation on Medford Street. In recent conversations with the top management at National Grid, they have advised the city that in the event that the ballpark does not become a reality, that it would certainly entertain a conversation with the city and the MRA about the potential redevelopment alternatives for the site. As we all know, it's a prime location in the downtown area. It's next to the 320,000 square foot Bank of America Operations Center, which is supposed to be closing. I think it's going to be purchased by another entity that would retool that facility into commercial redevelopment and make some substantial upgrades to the facade so that you just don't see a brick edifice when you walk off the Malden Center on BTA. You combine that type of investment in the downtown with the investment that JAG's going to make, Jefferson Apartment Group, on this site, and you've got, you'll have 2 premier economic development locations right across the street from the T. I don't think the city would want to continue to support what, in my opinion, kind of appears like a graveyard for double poles on 100 Commercial Street, but we would definitely need to reopen some dialogue with NGrid in fairness to them. They supported and helped try to see this redevelopment effort to reality. In a recent discussion that the mayor, Mr. Bach, and I had, we spoke to Alex, at length, and conveyed the message that something needs to be done there, or we're at the stage that we've got to move on. Some may argue maybe we should have reached that conclusion some time ago, but we've reached that conclusion as of, this week, or within the last couple of weeks. As a result, we talked about what would be a reasonable deadline to move on. And he felt, given where he's at in his conversations right now on the affiliated team discussions, that he respectfully requested an August 1 deadline. So we agreed at the table that August 1 was something that would be reasonable. I've made National Grid aware that it could be an August 1 deadline to conclude our discussions at the table with Mr. Bach if he does not demonstrate some significant progress by then. The way I look at it, it is a valuable real estate. Some may argue that the whole process has taken some time to kind of get through it. I look at another project I was involved in, still am, with River's Edge and Telecom City, and that took 12 years or so. However, with that one, we were able to report along the way some significant milestones, and there really haven't been significant ones of late, other than the ones I reported to you earlier, with the change to an affiliate, kind of trajectory here. So, he's still committed to wanting to do the project, but, can't say at this point when he could pull the trigger on it. In terms of a ball field, and it was a right, I think, economic development decision for the city to pursue at the time, because it is a contaminated site. It has a long history of being a coal gasification plant, and a ball field with a synthetic turf type, cap went a long way as far as even National Grid was concerned in addressing some of the environmental legacy that's associated with that site. But again, I do want to say, as most recently as today, they definitely would be amenable to further dialogue about how that site could be redeveloped in the future in the event the ballpark does not become a reality. They did condition that, however, with having to just see operationally, internally, where all their forces are lining out within the parameters of their company. But I believe they're sincere in saying that they will revisit future partnerships with the community.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Councilor Matheson still has the floor.
Thank you. Very briefly, I appreciate you coming and giving us that thorough recap of where we are. Certainly, I'm disappointed that so many years have gone by and that we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars pursuing this project. But if my request for an update 2 weeks ago had caused, in part, this reevaluation of where we are, and the realization that this isn't coming to fruition, I'm happy about that, and I'm excited to hear that there's a world of possibilities out there. I know it's a contaminated site, but that doesn't mean that it's a useless site. And I'm also happy that some Malden-owned businesses are no longer being considered for eminent domain. Now we have the opportunity to put our heads together and find out what's best for the people of Malden in our future. And again, I appreciate you being here.
Can I just, one thing for the record, in terms of the Malden businesses, we all know them. They have a great legacy of doing business here for years in the city. And certainly from where I sit, I believe in treating people fairly. And I think, to the extent that I would insert myself in any deal, had there been an eminent domain, it would have been fair market value, including what value has been added to that property since dialogue became was first entertained on this ball field. So, I hope the businesses acknowledge that, the city and the MRA, and I know the mayor has had conversations with the businesses too, to try to, advise them that, we would make every effort we could, before we would ever, move forward with the deal to make sure that they were treated fairly.
Yeah, some eminent domain, is more palatable than others. When you're considering an ongoing business, that's people's livelihood, particularly local people, you're more sympathetic to them. And obviously, there's a goodwill value beyond the assets of the business that you need to compensate these folks for, and they have to readjust their lives. It's a little different than, for example, the Malden Hospital site, where it's a piece of urban blight, and it's a corporation that's not local. And it's land that's essentially going to waste. Eminent domain in that context feels a lot different, and in fact, it is a lot different. It's that kind of condemnation is useful to help remove urban blight and create a better use. But I'm not going to go on that point. I appreciate your remarks, and I see it exactly as you do. And again, thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Matheson. Well, we have a series of lights up here, and I've been keeping track of them, so I am going to my far left, which I believe is either Councilor Kinnon or Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Kinnon.
Thank you, Madam President, and to the council and to Director Burke. And this may have changed in the time frame since the beginning. But one thing that count me in as a doubting Thomas. Probably wouldn't give them to August, but what the heck, it's been this long. Understand this, at the time that we entered into the deal in the United States, there was, outside of New York City, there were no minor league teams that were affiliated inside of 10 miles from the park, Major League Park, inside of 10 miles with the way the crow flies. And that, the major leagues were adamant about. New York City could support it because it had 8 to 9 million people. The other cities just simply didn't allow it. So maybe something's changed, or maybe somebody's on a hope and a prayer here. Thank you.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you very much for coming out and speaking with us today. My statements are more to the city and the council and just the general public. One of the things that I think that we're kind of dealing with as a city, and something I see happening in most post-industrial cities across the country, we're dealing with a lot of poison land, brownfields, Superfund sites, and these are really holding back the economic development of our city. The National Grid site is a huge block in the middle of our downtown area. I really think that as a city we need to unite and take these organizations to heal. I mean, we have Honeywell, we have the Malden Hospital site, we have National Grid, and I do not think that they are being responsible corporate citizens. I think it's important for us to really become unified and put our foot down and say, you cannot be acting like this anymore. A lot of cities are dealing with this. I'm proud to be from Malden, which is the first town to petition the colonial government to secede from Great Britain. I think that we are a leading city. I think that this is an issue that we should take up. There's no issue that's too big. And I think that there is a way that we can lead this fight forward. I personally would be willing to sponsor a bill where we ask the state legislature, the federal government, whoever we need to talk to start looking at this issue. It's affecting Worcester, it's affecting Fall River, it's affecting Boston, it's affecting the whole country. And I do think that it really impacts our city. So I would sponsor a paper that asks the Attorney General to investigate this type of thing. I know we have the Malden Hospital site, which is a huge issue. And hopefully I'll get that support of the city and also the council to move forward with this. But I do think it's important that we take these areas of poison blight and really take them seriously. It affects people's health, and it really, I think, impacts our local economy. So I just wanted to kind of state that. I know it's kind of the tension in the room. I can feel it. I apologize. There's no issue that's too big, and I look forward to working with the city, the MRA, and the public to make sure that we can accomplish this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Spatafora on my far right.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Ms. Burke, for coming. Thank you for sponsoring this paper. Councilor Matheson, I think this is something that, as long as I've been on the council, it's been talked about. There was public meetings, there was great fanfare. And I wrote down a couple of things I was talking. One is, I think in all fairness, I'm not going to mention the domain, but I think the decision just to allow the business owners in that block to either reinvest move forward with their lives, because this has been something that's been hanging over their head for a long time. So I think a decision's got to be made in all fairness for them, right? And that's the first thing. Whether we go forward with a plan or not, it's just been something I think it's always been in the back of their mind. But what I would say, from somebody who deals with businesses every day, if you cannot find capital in the lowest interest rate environment ever and put a product on the field, whether that be a baseball team or a soccer team, there's something wrong with the business plan. It's 10 years. And we've been hearing the same story over and over. I need more time and more time. And this plan, I think, has gone from baseball, and then it changed to baseball, then it would be concerts. They were going to be using a full-time facility, and then it went from, we need to get a grant to move the main gas line, and Senator at the time, Congressman Markey was, every hurdle that we have, I shouldn't say we're taking credit, but there's the MRA and the state delegation, the mayor's office, both, Christensen, I think, came on in the end, and Howard, every hurdle that we faced, we met our task. We got National Grid to come, but it's a brownfield site. They're very limited on what they want to see on that site because they're responsible forever. They got that agreement to happen. Then there was the grant. They got Senator it is Senator Markey, but now it was Congressman Markey at the time to get over $1 million, I think, for that grant. Then there was talk about putting a conference center there because they needed access to more capital. The business plan here is just not viable. And now in the meantime, I was somebody who was adamantly opposed to the structure of the deal at the time, and it wasn't Debbie Burke, it was her predecessor, because everywhere in the agreement said the MRA, except when it came to the responsibility ultimately, National Grid, to their credit, realized this, if the facility doesn't work or come to fruition, we would have to pay to deconstruct that field. And then there was a revenue sharing agreement with the parking, which I understand, but now we fast forward. Parking is a premium. Hopefully the square is up and coming. There's changes coming on here, so parking becomes even more a premium. We have a casino now that's going to be at one point 2 miles down the road, maybe less, so traffic's going to be even more, and we still have this plan. So I think we need to send a message to Mr. Bach, like the past. I hate to quote people or mention them in their speeches. Mayor Menino said that the hole in Filene's basement, when they sat there for 5 years and they didn't build anything, he said, if you don't make a move in 30 days, I'm pulling your permit. And guess what happened? Millennium Partners is building the most expensive resident in the city of Boston right now because the developer knew they would lose every permit they had at the time. And I want to see something happen there. Now, I don't know what that is, because now if you start talking residential, that's a whole different ballgame, but I just think, and it's not putting up a wall, because I hate when people say, oh, you're sending a message. I'm just sending a message to Mr. Bach. August to me is way, way too far out. Council Kennington, you're on the head. We're too close to Fenway to put a baseball team there because they want every entertainment dollar they can get. They're competing against the movie theaters, they're competing against the Red Sox, and never go allow that. Soccer stadium now, maybe more viable, maybe different, but Division II, it's a stretch. So I just think we've been very fair to Mr. Bach. If he had a plan, I think there was support here to some degree. But at one point, we need to send a message, at least from the council's perspective, whether the MRA and the mayor's office want to do it, but from my perspective, it should be, you got 60 days, we want a plan, we want a business plan, and we want to see what's happening. And if not, thank you for the interest, we're moving on. And we weren't the first city he came to. We were the third or fourth, or second or third stop on the railroad here. So we're the only ones having patience. And I'm concerned now that the longer we go in this, the real estate cycle's changing. We're kind of coming out of a low interest environment. If there's any other opportunities out there for anything else, we're going to lose them real quick. So I just think it's my opinion, we send a message from the council that you have 60 days, we want a business plan. If not, see you later. Thank you, Madam President. What was that, a motion? That was a motion. Yeah, thank you, Madam President.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam President. Debbie, I seem to recall that the big obstacle to this project came into play when all of the property owners along the stretch of Canal Street were not interested in relocating. That many of the smaller shops were, but there was one large property owner, a business owner down there, that was not interested in negotiating with Alex Bach. And it was clear to me, and we're going back 2 or 3 years now, it seems, that without that parcel of land, there wasn't going to be a ball field. And I never got the sense that there was enough willingness on the part of the city council to take that land by eminent domain. So I don't know why we've gone this far. I don't know why we've gone this far without coming and pulling the plug on this thing. Alex, if we were thinking that the Field of Dreams or the soccer group was going to do anything there, it wasn't going to happen unless they were able to get all of that land down there, and that wasn't going to happen. So here we are now in 2016, still with a couple of months of delay, I guess. It's not going to surprise me at all that if we would, let me back up and say, I support Councilor Spatafora's motion that we take a vote and pull the plug right away unless he comes up with a business plan and pull the plug. But Stevie Wonder could have seen that this wasn't going to happen. Ray Charles was going to see that this wasn't going to, I mean, didn't have to have a crystal ball to figure out that if they weren't going to be able to get all that land, that the project wasn't going to happen.
But to your point, Counselor, I guess if you count votes, I don't know what the votes would have been, but I would say that message was never conveyed, by the city council. I mean, maybe we were parties together, operating like this, that come together and take a vote and say, look, this is never going to happen, cut your losses now and move on. I mean, and that, the negotiations continued, the updates continued, we went from, a change in administration, and, I don't think either administration ever heard, I'm just a worker bee kind of helping to carry out the city's economic development plans, but I'm not really sure that there was ever a message delivered that when it came to you folks for a vote, forget about it. So, I'm sorry if I misread those cards, but that message was never, to me, conveyed in a council resolution.
Let me just ask my colleagues for a show or a nod of head. Was there a sense up here that we were going to take all that property by eminent domain to those businesses that were not? I mean, there were some businesses that were glad to give it up under eminent domain, but the biggest parcel down there, it was clear that they weren't going to give it up, and unless I'm misreading my colleagues up here, I don't see that there was a willingness. And I guess someone wasn't reading the tea leaves because that wasn't going to happen. And here we are in 2016 acting like, is there still a possibility? And I don't think there is a possibility unless all that land can be consolidated. So I support Councilor Spatafora's motion that we look for a business plan or pull the plug. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Councilor Spatafora.
I just got one with Chairman Burke, but there was never a plan presented to the council to vote on, meaning Bob never came to us and said, I have a team, I have the financing, this is what I want. They never even got to that point. It wasn't because of the properties, it was because they didn't have the financing or the team, because I heard you couldn't get the team without the financing, and the financing wouldn't get the team. So was there a plan to council at this point to vote against or for?
We didn't have the development fully, complete, I can't even think of the word right now, to bring forward to you. I mean, there were, to your point, several changes. We went from, capital bond bills, carrying money for convention centers, etc. And to tell you the truth, the urban renewal plan, we were tasked with early on, trying to put one together, and we started doing that work when Mr. Wachowski was there. but it's not complete. And, you know, the hope too at the time was that the redeveloper could reach fair settlements at the table with the property owners. I mean, we weren't trying to waive eminent domain in people's, you know, faces, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafor. We have both Councilor Condon and Councilor Di Maria waiting to speak. So I will let you toss a coin and see who wants to go first.
Thank you, Council President. I think the first red flag is when they let that agreement run out, and that agreement was for an independent league, and now they've moved on to an affiliated team. And I think Council Spatafor and the other councils are correct. I never could have entered into an eminent domain situation on those properties. I always thought it would be fair market value. But years ago, I used to serve with an older councilor who used to have a saying, which always stuck with me: either get on the bus or off the bus. Well, I have 2 feet off the bus right now on this project. So I don't see it happening. I hope we do pull the plug very quickly on it. I think he's stringing us along. I think maybe the Bank of America, that development makes it, has an effect on how we're thinking, because they're going to require quite a few parking spaces in that garage, I'm sure. Do you have any idea how many parking spaces they're looking for that development, which is a tremendous development?
The Redevelopment Authority Board, 2 weeks ago, whenever their meeting was, the third Tuesday of the month, approved a parking agreement with the entity that's trying to buy the bank. In the event they do not close, the parking agreement is null and void, but it would be for 300 spaces in the 650-car garage. And we have done an analysis that shows at least close to that number are currently occupied by people that are paying at will by month, but at full market rate, so I'm not going to say goodbye, but paying that we could, over time, with notice from the redeveloper, if they close, could move those people or terminate those agreements.
I don't want to get off point here, but is that 24-hour parking, or is it just daytime parking? Or?
All of the agreements that were done here, and a lot, from what I understand, in Boston, are for 24 hours, but we have also done another data analysis that shows a very small, insignificant, if you will, and I can get you that data, Mr. Condon, take advantage of parking there 24 hours a day. It's negligible.
So right now you have what, 350 cars in that 650 car parking lot, parking garage?
No, it's usually filled quite often during the day by transients or other visitors that will come there.
So with this development, that says to me there's going to be 300 cars going somewhere else, probably in my neighborhood.
I don't think so. When we looked at some of the addresses, my gut's telling me that some of them are T-Parkers that decided to stay. And I can run that database for you as well. We have some hard data. And, so I think a lot of it is people that are coming here, parking in the garage, particularly the Jackson Street garage, and taking the train or commuter rail to work. The addresses just don't support that they're working or living in Malden.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just going to be very short because most of my fellow councilors have said what I'm thinking. Just one question, Debbie, is what is the size acreage of this potential build-out?
The National Grid site is a little over 6 acres, and if you had combined the abutting parcels, it would have brought the property up to about 9 acres or so.
I will have to say I do agree that a square doesn't go in a circle, and this 8 years has been an awfully long time. Euphorically, it would have been wonderful, but we got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. So I do concur with my fellow Councilor Spatafora. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Di Maria. Councilor Matheson for the second time.
Thank you, Council President. And I appreciate all the remarks that I heard. And I understand completely what Councilor Spatafora was saying. I don't think he actually made a motion. I think what he was saying, because he was surprised. We were seconding, and he said, "Was that a motion?" But what I heard was that the 2012 letter of intent, where we as a council had to sign off because we owned the backstop provision, if I've got that correct, where we would have been liable for money if the ballpark failed to be a going concern and had to wind up. That has expired. Mr. Bach calls that non-operative. So at this point...
National Grid called it that.
Okay, right, and I agree with them. So at this point, we don't have to do anything. We just don't have to renew the LOI. So this is dead. And I'm confused as to what the mayor and the MRA are even negotiating with Mr. Bach, because the LOI is gone. This body doesn't seem willing to do anything further with it. As far as I'm concerned, it's a dead issue. And I just want to add that Councilor D'Angelo called me right before the meeting began, and he was barely audible because he was so sick. He told me he wasn't going to make it, but he said that he wants to see something new happen over there and finally put this ballpark business to rest. And I do too. I think he's had ample time. Councilor Spatafora said it best. If he couldn't put the financing together in the best economic conditions for doing so, and he had all these years of doing it, I think it's safe to say that this it's dead now. If I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me.
You're accurate right now. The LOI is dead.
Right. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councilor Matheson. Councilor Spatafora for the second time.
Hopefully, I'm sure you all agree this will be the last time I speak, but I would still like to send a message if the council would indulge me, at least whether you want to be resolved to continue that. Formally, while I agree with Councilor Matheson, I want to send a message to Mr. Bach, but also, I don't want him negotiating for the next 6 or 7 months, or at least attempt to do something where we're not supportive. Plus, when Ms. Burke said that he's negotiating with old terms. So I don't know what math he has in those agreements, but the economy's changed in the degree, and we're in the driver's seat. So I just want to send a message. If he wants to come back and talk to us, and we can do that, that's fine. But in my opinion, I'm still sticking with my original resolve of 60 days, business plan, or whatever support we may have or may not have is withdrawn. Thank you, Madam President. 6 days.
I'll just say very briefly that my support's withdrawn as of now, but I'll vote for your resolve.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Burke, for coming down. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate the update. And thank you, Councilor Matheson, for requesting that she did come down to give us this update. I think it's something that we all needed to hear. It's been extremely informative, and I think that Ms. Burke and the Mayor's Office, the folks who are sitting in the audience from the Mayor's Office, kind of have a clear indication of where the council is coming from at this point if they didn't before. I agree with Councilor Matheson that the issue is actually dead. If we want to vote on a 60-day extension for him to come back with a business plan, I'm not going to deny that, but I don't want to give him false hope either, because it does not seem like there is a tremendous amount of support for this project on this council at the moment. So. Oh, it certainly would be the last and final 60 days, Councilor Di Maria. I think there's a few of us who probably wouldn't even give him that much. So on Councilor Spatafora's motion, the clerk will read it. Seconded by Councilor Kinnon, I believe.
Resolved is the sense of the City Council that Alex Bach provide the city with a viable business plan for the National Grid site within 60 days, or the city withdraw support for the project.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The resolve has been passed. Thank you, Ms. Burke.